Pete Rose passes away at the age of 83 here in Las Vegas. So Brent Musburger has decided to give us some time today to share his thoughts on the passing of Charlie Hustle, and he's with us now. Brent, we appreciate the time. So we give you the floor, sir, as you hear the news that Pete has passed. What were your first thoughts?
Well, Pete Rose was one of my favorite characters, and as I see the Seahawks and the Lions getting ready, I'm sure that Pete would have a position on this game. He loved to bet football, and I go way back with him in the NFL today. I got a couple of anecdotes to tell you that Jimmy the Greek took down ill for a couple of weeks, and I knew that Pete loved to bet on football, and so I gave him a call, and I said, "Hey, Pete, would you come and be our replacement for the Greek on the NFL today?" I'd love to, Pete said. So he came in and we gave him the checkboard that the Greek used because the commissioner did not want us using -3, +7, -6.5. So we had to use check marks. So Pete used the board and we picked the games and he put his checks on one side, and Pete never let me forget that he picked more winners than the Greek for 2 weeks in a row. He was our hottest handicapper, and he was just a delight to be around. He was very knowledgeable about the National Football League, and he would come to New York occasionally. We would go out. One night I was out getting ready for a college football game somewhere before the NFL today, so it was a Friday night, and my phone rang at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and "Hey, Brent, this is Pete." Yeah, Pete, what's up? Is there a problem? No. Listen, I got word that the fix is in on the Marshall game. I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah, I got some inside information. What do you know?" I said, "Pete, I don't know a thing about it." I said, "I haven't heard anything." I said, "I'll tell you what, my friend, I'll give you a call if I hear anything." And of course I didn't. But that was Pete Rose. He loved action, but as you go back and look at his career as a baseball player, you know, he was old school. There was just when you think about somebody with 4,256 hits, and he hit 303 for his career. Now you look at guys today, and they think 250 is a very good batting average, and he hit over 300 for his career. He also, you know, he played only one way, you guys, and that was hard. I mean, you know, you'd go in and watch him play, and he certainly would end the game in all likelihood with dirt on the front of his uniform because he was going in sliding head first. So he was a wonderful, wonderful character. I used to visit with him in Las Vegas through the years, and may he rest in peace. You know what I mean, guys?
Charlie Hustle, number 14, part of the Big Red Machine, won 3 World Series championships. Brent, that's what I said is what I remember as a kid about Pete Rose was how hard he played the game. He's one of the toughest, hardest playing baseball players I've ever seen. I think that's the first thing I remember. And then obviously what most people are going to recall about Pete Rose is that he was betting on baseball. He would not admit it when he was manager of the Reds, and how it kept him out of the Hall of Fame for so long. I think he's going to eventually be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, absolutely. He should be in it. And Matt, what they should put down at the bottom of the plaque is that he was suspended in whatever the year was for gambling on baseball. Now, I had a conversation with Pete. I would not have objected. This is kind of interesting. When he was a player, if he was betting, and obviously if he didn't bet against himself, obviously if he was betting on the Reds, I didn't have a big problem with that. But I told him I did have a problem with him betting as a manager.
Sure.
Probably the only disagreement we had. And I said, Pete, let me explain that to you. I said, you had power over the bullpen. And if you were betting on a game, and in all likelihood, you would go to your closer. You would go to your best guys. You know, most of the starters back in that day, they would go 7, 8 innings. Now, for goodness sakes, lucky for him to reach 5. But as a manager, I didn't like him betting on baseball because of the control he had over the bullpen that none of us who also bet on baseball would have known. So that was about the only time we disagreed. I've never had a problem with athletes betting on themselves because jockeys are allowed to do it. I mean, so, you know, if a kid wants to bet on him, I mean, rather than tell a friend or a relative, which is what they're doing, go ahead and do it. So that's where I stand on that. I understand it's a controversial stand. I get it.
Brent Musburger with us again, co-founder of VSiN. He's been the godfather here at the network for a very long time, since day one. So, Brent, I'm curious. I want to get your thoughts here. For me, look, Pete Rose stopped playing 4 years before I was born. I never really got to obviously see any of that. But I'm familiar with baseball stars of today and what it was like. What was it like in the heyday of his career, just as a player, from a narrative standpoint, a popularity standpoint? How was it like from your eyes watching him throughout his career, and how big was he throughout his career?
Well, baseball was bigger than it is now. Okay, we're coming into the prime of the baseball season, which is the playoffs. But the NFL was still in its ascendancy. Okay, but during the week, you would get as much conversation about Major League Baseball in September as you did the opening of the NFL. Now that has completely changed. The NFL dominates, and a lot of it, honestly, has to do with legal wagering throughout the United States. Baseball on television is not as good as football. Football is a back-and-forth game, and there are seconds off between plays, which allows the networks to get replays of. And baseball is not a back-and-forth game, and it's a much more difficult game to show on television. You are stuck with what becomes a boring picture from center field behind the pitcher. And it's just not, there isn't the variety of action that you can show on football. So to get to your question, Pete Rose was much bigger back in that day. Now, listen, there's a guy playing today that I could argue may be the greatest baseball player of my lifetime, and that's Shohei Ohtani. What he has accomplished this year with the Dodgers is absolutely unbelievable. A 50-50 season, and he's about to become the National League's most valuable player, and that means he will become an MVP in both the American and the National League. I know you follow the Angels because that's your favorite team, and you and I have talked about that, and obviously they missed the great Ohtani. And so back in that day, when we're talking about people, Ohtani would have overshadowed all things football. Yeah. Now the world has changed. The world has changed completely, and so that's not the case. But Pete Rose was bigger than life. The media loved him because we could go into a locker room after a game, or we could run into him. I ran into him in restaurants. I would be covering the big red machine coming down the stretch for the old Chicago American. I'd be out in Los Angeles. They were playing the Dodgers in a big series, and you'd run into Pete afterwards. And back in those days, the media people and the athletes got along a lot better than they do today, because media people are always looking for controversy today. That wasn't the case in my era. We covered the games, and then that was it. Closed the book, and off we went into our own other world. And so Pete Rose was huge back in the day. And to go back to the question about the Hall of Fame, he has belonged in the Hall of Fame all along, with that asterisk. I don't mind. I hate people who just think they can erase history. You can't. You can't. It's there. So Pete Rose should definitely be in the Hall. And so should Barry Bonds, by the way. Another character I was around a little bit later. But Bonds and Rose belong in Cooperstown. There's no doubt about it.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.